Psalm 85, 11 and 12. Sorry, I didn't get much time to prepare, but I just wanted to share it all. Psalm 85, 11 and 12. Um, truth, truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. So here God is saying that truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. So God is expecting the truth and faithfulness, to come from us. Then only God's righteousness will come down. So when I was reading that, in our language, it is more clear that we can read that righteousness will go before him and shall make his footsteps our pathway. So when we are faithful to God, God will be righteous to us. So there is a part we all have to do. In our days, we cannot see any faithful people. Spouses, when they get married, they make a vow, but how many people are faithful to each other? Children may not be faithful to the parents. Parents may not be faithful to children. Or, you cannot see much faithful people. Even in our workplace, too, we don't see. But God is saying that I am faithful until death. And God is telling us to do the same thing too. When we all take a baptism, that is what God is saying. Be faithful until death. Then only you get the crown. So, God is expecting us to be faithful in the same way He is faithful to us. And it's not that easy to keep the faithfulness. In our life journey, many times, when we look through the Bible, many big people, God, those used by God, there are certain times that they became unfaithful. But the good thing is, when they found out, they returned to God, submitted. That's where, God still led them. For example, Peter. Peter wasn't faithful. When time came, he was also against Jesus. We can see David wasn't faithful. So, but they all realized their mistake and came back to God. That's why God, still helped them to go on. So we can see what things happens when we are faithful. Let us go to Hebrew chapter 3, verse 2 and 4. Hebrew chapter 3.
How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord, and was confirmed to us by those who heard him?
Did you say 3? 3, 2 and 4.
Oh,
About Moses.
Said two?
who was faithful to him who appointed him, as Moses also was faithful in all his house. But this one has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses. Verse 4. For every house is built by someone, but he who built all things is God.
My also, sorry.
And Moses indeed was faithful in all his house, as a servant, for a testimony of those things which will be spoken afterward.
Okay, so here God is talking about Moses. Moses was faithful to him who appointed him, as Moses also was, who was faithful to him who appointed him, as Moses also was faithful in all his house. And verse 4 and 5 saying that for every house is built by someone, but he who built all things is God. And Moses indeed was faithful in all his house as a servant for a testimony of those things which would be spoken afterward. When I was reading that, I thought, my goodness, all the struggle that Moses went through, you can imagine. He forsook everything. And today, when I was meditating on this, I was picturing that Moses went through the wilderness for 40 years. On one side, he can see these people are complaining and murmuring, and they're trying to throw stuff on him. And, on the other side, he himself must have the fear, how I'm going to lead these people through the wilderness. What is my future? What is the destiny? When are we going to reach there? So he himself might be not sure, no certainty about tomorrow. And on the other side, God is telling you do this, you do that. And he has to be faithful on that too, But, no matter what our circumstances he went through, he was always trying to focus on, I want to be faithful to God. And we can see that when we read in Exodus chapter 25, 8 and 9. Exodus 25, 8 and 9.
And let them make according to all that I showed them, after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the instruments thereof,
You just said 35.
And not 25, 8 and 9. Here she's
even so shall he be.
Okay. To 25, verse 8 and 9, it's saying, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them according to all that I show you. So God showed him exact picture of what he has to make and how he has to make. And God is saying that you make exactly what. There's not even a single centimeter or millimeter change. You do exactly what I said. So on one side, all these problems he's going through and all the worries and fears, and on the other side, God is saying, I don't care what you're going through, but you do exactly what I'm telling. And we'll see when we come to Exodus chapter 40, we can see whether he did or not. In Exodus chapter 40, verse 16. Okay, it says, thus Moses, Exodus chapter 40, verse 16. Thus Moses did according to all that the Lord had commanded him, so he did. So it's not only one time God saying that. Now we will go to the same chapter, verse 19.
And he spread abroad the tent over the tabernacle and put the covering of the tent above upon it, as the Lord commanded Moses.
Okay, so they are also saying that he did exactly what God told him to do. Now read verse 21.
And he brought the ark to the tabernacle and set out the veil of the covering and covered the ark with the testimony as the Lord commanded Moses.
Okay, and 23.
And he set the bread in order upon it before the Lord as the Lord had commanded Moses.
Okay, 25.
And he lighted the lamps before the Lord as the Lord commanded Moses.
And 27 and 29. Everywhere it's saying God, he did exactly what God told him.
And he burnt sweet incense thereon as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the altar of burnt offering by the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation and offered upon it the burnt offering and the meat offering as the Lord commanded Moses.
Okay. So can God just write one time that Moses did exactly what I told him to do? He could just write only one time, but why he writing? When I was reading this chapter over and over, I thought, my goodness, how many times God is saying that he did exactly what I commanded him to do? Because God is saying that we have to be very precise. When God says something to do, whether we like it or not, whether we have other distractions or not, just do exactly what I do. And after he did all this, still God's power didn't come down. Now when we look at verse 40, 34.
Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle.
Okay. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle. When it says then, there's something that happened before that. That is what it says in verse 33. And he raised up the court all around the tabernacle and the altar, and he hung up the screen of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. So when Moses finished all his work, and he put the curtain, that curtain is showing that a separation. So after he built everything and made a separation, so God was waiting. He finished the work and he put the separation. Then God's power came in. Then he said, okay, now you separated for me. Now I'm going to come and dwell in you. Until then the glory didn't come down. So he was working on the sanctuary for so many months and days and so many weeks. But still God said, no, I'm waiting till the final point. So that teaches something. We may say that we fast and pray and read the word and to come to church and do everything, but God is looking for that separation. Are we separated? Are we set apart for God? Then only I can come and dwell in you. So that's very fearful. And another thing I learned about Moses is he did all these things that God told him to do, but at one point when God told him, you come to the rock, he beat the rock. And God said, okay, now because you did that, you're not going to enter Canaan. So God told, if it is me, suppose I'm doing some work for a person, and he's supposed to give me something. For example, I'm building 2-3 houses for my master, and master said, after you build all these houses, one house is for you. Suppose he said that, and I'm so diligent and working and everything, and in the middle of it, something I did, my master didn't like it. Then master said, okay, I promised you that I'll give you one house, but since you did that, I'm not going to give you that house anymore. Then how it will be my work afterwards? When that master tell me that that I supposed to give you something and I'm not going to give you anymore, I will do the job, but I will do a lousy job, right? That's what I will be doing because what I was promised, I'm not going to get it. So same way, Moses was promised that he will enter into Canaan, and God said, "Now because you did something I didn't like, you're not going to do it, but still you do whatever I commanded you to." So even though he knew I'm not going to reach Canaan, even though he knew God is not pleased with me, and still he was very diligent in doing God's work. He didn't even turn left or right. That's very painful to do that, but still he was very diligent. So God was watching that, and God said, "Okay, even though I punished him, I told him you're not going to enter into Canaan, and still he was very, very careful, completely doing everything what I told. So I had to honor him. That's why when he died, God came and buried him, and God gave him a chance. During transfiguration, you can see that Moses came into and entered the promised land. So even though God said so, he was still a merciful God. So that's why God said that he was very faithful in my house. He was very little things I told him. He was very faithful in doing that. When I read that really touched me. When God look at us, can He say that we are faithful? No, many times we are not. Now, so we can see that when we are faithful to God, God's glory comes down. That's what happened in Moses' life. He was very faithful, and God's glory came. The cloud filled the temple, and he was dwelling there. Now we can see what happens when the glory comes down. When we are faithful. Let us go to John chapter 6, verse 9 and 10. John chapter 6, 9 and 10.
There is a lad here which had 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? And Jesus said, "Make the men sit down." And now there was much grass in the place, and the men sat down, in number about 5,000.
Okay. So here we can see that we all know the story that people all are starving and they are all hungry for the word and they are sitting there. So Jesus is saying, you feed them. And it's specifically saying that there are 5,000 men. So what about the children? What about the women? They didn't even count. That means they are, suppose we 5 of us coming to a house, they all invited. And they all are talking to all 4 people, and one is completely excluded from that. How that person feels that I'm nobody. Why did I come here? So same way, these 5,000 men are all mentioned there. They counted those men's number, and they specifically written 5,000 men. But the women and children are so insignificant. But even though in people's eyes these women and children are insignificant, Jesus used that boy who was very insignificant in people's eyes. That is the person who brought the bread for them. So, many times we think that we are in reproach and we are neglected and nobody care about us. But we have to remember, when we are neglected by other people, that's when God cares for us much. So God could, maybe one of these 5,000 men could bring a bread, but nobody was there to bring. But these people who are counted nothing, He is the one who brought the bread to feed all these people. And then God is telling them, you gather up all these people and you make them sit down. To make 5,000 people and all these women and children to make them sit down, and also like a 15 other portion, we can see that 50 each. That's not an easy job, right? So to get something from God is not an easy thing. We cannot just go sit there and pray, God, you give me this great. There is some pain and some burden and some effort behind it. So here they're going to see a big miracle, but in order to have that miracle to happen, you had to obey me. And the disciples didn't question, God, can you see how many days we didn't eat? And you are asking us such a big task. All these people, we had to count 50 each and put them in row. And when we call one, they will go this way, the other one will go this way. It is not that easy, but the disciples didn't complain. They were so faithful. And because of that, God is saying that in verse 12 it says, so when they were filled, He said to His disciples, gather up the fragments that remain so that nothing is lost. Even the little crumbs God cares. And these people who were working so hard, they got the blessings. The blessings were waiting for them. So when we are faithful to God, there is a blessing waiting for us. So first we saw that when Moses was faithful, glory came down. Here we can see that the disciples were faithful, and then God gave them their share. Now we can go to Genesis chapter 24, 12 through 19. Genesis 24, 12 through 19.
And he said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, I pray thee, send me good speed this day, and show kindness unto my master Abraham. Behold, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city come out to draw water. And let it come to pass that the damsel to whom I shall say, Let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink. And she shall drink, and I will give thy camel drink also. But the same be she that thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac, and thereby shall I know that thou hast shewn kindness unto my master. And it came to pass, before he had done speaking, that behold, Rebekah came out, was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, which had a pitcher upon her shoulder. The damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin, neither had any man known her. And she went down to the well and filled the pitcher and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, Let me, I pray thee, drink a little water of thy pitcher. And she said, Drink, my lord. And she hastened, let down her pitcher.
So here, this is the story about Rebecca. When I was reading one history, it's saying that she was only 8 or 12 years old. She's such a little girl. And here, she's coming there and she's coming to get some water for herself. Such a tiny girl coming for water. And this Alexa is sitting and praying, God, if that girl, whoever comes there, then I ask her to give me some water. If she give the water for the camel too, then she will be the right one. Okay, and he didn't say whatever he was praying, he didn't say this girl. So here this girl is coming, and Elijah is asking for some water for himself. And when she gave the water to himself, then she said, okay, I will give some water for the camel too. And you can imagine the camel drink a lot of water, because they have their own bag they want to collect too. So you imagine this girl going down and carrying the water and giving, and without any hesitancy. And this Eliezer is not saying, okay, you didn't have, let me go and help you. He didn't even say, he's just sitting there and watching the whole time, and she didn't complain. So after all this happened, Eliezer going there with some gift. He's giving all the ornaments and bangles and chains and everything. So this is how God is doing in our life too. He sit and watch. When He give us a job, He wants to see whether we are faithful in it. And after that, here comes the gift is waiting for Rebecca. And she got all the gift. And then she went home. And then the brother and the parents asked, do you want to go with this man? And she was ready to go. This 8-year-old girl is ready to go to a foreign land where she doesn't even know where she's going. She doesn't even know who her husband is. But because she was faithful, she got a nice husband. Because she was faithful, a nice gift was waiting for her. So, God is expecting the same thing from us. Many times we are unfaithful, but God is saying, be faithful, I can give you, whatever you're asking for. Then the last thing, as I told you earlier, Revelation chapter 2, verse 10 saying, be faithful until death so that you will get the crown. So that is another thing that's waiting for us when we are faithful. So in our life journey, why people cannot be faithful? What is the reason, the main reason why people are not faithful? Then we can read in Judges chapter 21, verse 25. Judges 21, 25.
In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own.
Can you imagine? When there is no king in Israel, people all did whatever they want, whatever they thought right in their eyes. When we don't have a king in our heart, that's what we do. People do, because if there is a king, there is a kingdom. If there is a king, there are some rules we have to follow. So, because there is no kings, then people do whatever. Because suppose we have 3 heads, each head command different things. Which one we are going to follow? That's why we need a king in our life. So people don't have a king in their life. They all did whatever they want. And when trouble came and problem came, they were all crying to God. That time they knew whom to look for. So many times when we don't give the priority for Jesus, When we don't have Jesus at the center of our heart, that's when we walk away from Him. So every day we have to examine ourselves and see whether we are with God. Are we faithful to Him like He is faithful to us? May God bless us. Let us close our eyes. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this time, Lord. Thank you for helping us to come together.